I don't know what happened. I just know that my son is in jail. I didn't raise my son to be in jail. And the heinous crime that he's being accused of, it's really mind-blowing for Dad and I. It's beyond unnerving. So to see me and to find out that my kid is in jail, it's like, what? It doesn't even match because of the parenting skills that we had, the parenting that we did, the way we showed up for our kids above and beyond. So that is a perfect example how you can show up for your kid, you can give your kid all the love and admiration, everything material, go above and beyond. Stop, drop your role and roll your life for your kid, and something goes left. Selena Coltrain-Cerezo, SELENA-COLTRAIN-CEREZO. My childhood growing up, my grandmother raised me. I lived in the home with my aunts, my uncle, and my cousin and brother. My mom wasn't around. I was born in Harlem, New York on 132nd Street and 7th Avenue. Growing up in Harlem, it was some good days and some bad days. One thing that was community. Everybody looked out for everybody back in those days. There was nobody that went without. Like, you know, back then they had the cheese and the powdered milk, so there was no way you was going hungry. Grandma took care of everybody. Grandma was the one to go to on the block. You know, if you needed something, you know, you could stop by Grandma Thomas' house. She was going to get a meal. You was going to get a bed. You was going to be able to bathe, get a change of clothes. You knew you were going to get something. She took care of other people's kids. Well, my mom had me, and my mom's boyfriend was getting high, and my mom was trying to leave him. And I was under a year. I was under a year, definitely. And my mom tried to leave him, and when my mom was trying to leave, he was fighting my mom. I fell out my mom's hands, rolled and hit the radiator, bust my head. This coward thought I died, threw me in the garbage, and that's how my grandmother got me. So when he threw me in the garbage, somebody was going out to throw garbage out themselves, and they saw the bag moving. They thought it was a rat, but they heard the faint cry. I think they said that was like my last cry. Like after that, I was gonna be out of here. Next thing you know, they contacted my grandmother. My grandmother contacted 911. The ambulance came and got me and took me. And to this day, I have the mark on my head from busting it on the radiator. Well, you know, being a baby, I don't know the story exact. I only know what family members tell. So having been told, apparently my mom stayed with him because she had another child with him. So my mom either went back with him or left that night. I'm not sure how the story goes, but my mom did remain with him to have another child at least. And I know from the hospital, I went with my grandmother, and that's how my grandmother raised me. Well, I feel like that took from me because being that I don't think she liked my mother because what my mother was doing, I think it affected how she treated me. Because like I said, key word, she took care of other people's kids. So it was like she looked out for everybody in the neighborhood, but those that you were supposed to look out for, which was myself, it was like, I'm like, here, hi, remember me kind of mindset. So it was like, it was, I say to say the least, it was one of those things like, I love you, I'm gonna take care of you, I feed you, I put clothes on your back, but it was never shown. Like, I never got a hug from her. If I go to hug her, it was like, she pushed me off, she shoved me off, but I saw her do this with other people, so it was like kind of difficult to say the least. But I grew up a loving child. Love, and funny thing is, I'm that way, that I help everybody, but I also love and adore my kids. So I wouldn't say it was a love-hate. I would say I loved her because that's what I was supposed to do at that age as I was growing up. But as I got older and wiser, I understood that there was something going on, and I just didn't know what it was that was going on. Couldn't put my finger on it. And I saw that she liked her boys more than she liked her girls. So having liked the boys more than the girls, it's like, okay, well, why my mom? Why did my mom get mistreated? Why did my mom get left? Well, then I also realized, well, my mom was on drugs. My mom was out there, so maybe that was the way she knew how to handle it. Maybe my grandmother didn't know how to handle it, so I kind of took back that anger that I had for her and the hatred and everything that I had for her, because maybe my grandmother didn't understand how to love, how to give love, so therefore she didn't know how to portray that love to me. But me wanting that love, I understood it as I got older to give it to my own kids and to show other people love. But, growing up, it was difficult. Like, you just can't put your finger on it. You don't understand it. Parents Teachers Night, what's that? As far as her being able to be there for us, it was basic stuff. You go to school, you come home, you eat, you get your meals, you go to bed, you get up, you repeat, you do it again. As far as plays and things like that, nope. Don't remember anybody coming to sit in the audience for me when I was in the play, and I always looked for attention, so I always was the star of the play. I was always the shining bud, but nobody there for me, so that became the norm, that became the norm for me. Like, I stopped looking, I stopped, expecting it, so to speak. I stopped expecting it. I was very good in school, and again, I think I did that to get the attention from my grandmother. Like, see, I have straight A's. See, I have good, B. I'm a good student. So it's like, love me, see me. And it was, again, that tough love. Like, that's what she knew. Later on in life, yet again, I can't blame her, but growing up as a child, you don't want to hear that. You want the love and appreciation and the admiration, because you're doing what you have to do to get these good grades. You're doing what you have to do to be this perfect child. And the situation that was feeding my desire for attention, because as a child, you know right from wrong. So you know what affection is. You know good affection versus bad affection. So I know I wasn't getting any affection because my grandmother, like I said, she wasn't a hugger. She wasn't a sentimental type of person or anything like that. So I had my neighborhood friends, which was their parents. I got the attention from their parents. So their parents would, I learned how to put on a freaking panty liner from my girlfriend's mom, who taught us everything about being a young lady and sitting with your legs closed and making sure you sit with your back straight up so you don't get back problems, and just wanting to be recognized as a good kid. And did that in school. I just excelled in school. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I wasn't interested in any of that because my mom was on drugs. Never knew my dad. So without having to tell my mom's story for her, my mom was a great mother. She was unable to have the opportunity to raise me because of what happened to me as a child, and my grandmother raised me. So I would see my mother here and there, but unfortunately, because of everything in life that my mom was dealing with, my mom was on drugs. So knowing that my mom was on drugs and I couldn't be raised with my mom, but I'm being raised with this grandmother, aunt, and uncles, it was kind of like, okay, well, why can't I be with my mother? Everybody else is with their mother. Everybody else got their father. Why am I being raised with my grandmother? That kind of bothered me. But again, I put a smile on and kept it inside and, didn't let anybody know my business. Speaking in reference to losing trust and trauma from not being raised by my mom, I know a lot of it comes from when a mother and a daughter has a relationship. It's that special bond. It's that friendship. You can go to your mother with things that you can't go to your grandmother about. For an example, when I was a little girl, I didn't know anything about a menstrual, and I got my menstrual when I was 9. I thought I cut myself. So I'm in the bathroom trying to wash this cut away. And it's not going away. And my uncle's girlfriend actually knocked on the door because I was taking too long in the bathroom. And she's like, Lena, what's going on? And God bless Daphne, because to this day, we still in contact. And she says to me, I'm like, I don't do it. I don't know what's up with. She's like, girl, and she had to explain to me what it was. But I'm 9 years old. But I'm 9 with boobs, and I didn't know what's going on with life. So here it is, not being, getting explained to by my grandmother. I'm having my uncle's girlfriend. So it's stuff like that I wish my mom was there for, because I would have gotten the whole birds and the bees talk, the whole talk about, not from my uncles. I got that talk from my uncles, and it should have came from my mom. So I got that whole talk from Daphne indirectly because she didn't want to overstep her boundaries. So it's stuff like that it made me really upset that my mom wasn't there for, because I saw my girlfriends having their moms there, and I got that information from my girlfriend's moms. But I wanted my mom. I wanted my mom, but didn't have it. One day, my mom bought drugs from the neighborhood guy. And that neighborhood guy was somebody where we both kind of had moms that was on drugs, and we had to kind of have this bond, and he would not sell to my mom. He told my mom to get out of here, and he told me about it. I was going downstairs to the store for the 100th time for my grandmother, and he told me about it, and I was like, oh, she did what? Okay. I went upstairs. I was going to fight my mom. I was going to bust her down, because how dare you? Like, not only are you not in my life, but then you come and disrespect me. And I was upset. I ran upstairs and got Vaseline. I was going to put it on my face, came back down with the sneakers and everything. My grandmother's like, Lena, where are you going? I told her what happened, and first time ever, my grandmother spoke highly about my mother. You have one mother is what she told me. Don't you ever disrespect your mother. You have one mother. No matter what she's out there doing, you have one mother. Love her, forgive her. And it was like, wow, I think that was a turning point in my life that made me even look at my grandmother different. I remember times my grandmother used to hide us. When from my mother come knocking on the door, want something as simple as a glass of water because she was in the neighborhood. My grandmother used to literally hide us. Like, we'll be in the living room and she'll put us on the bed and throw covers on and let my mother come use the bathroom, and whatever cup my mother drank out of, she threw it in the garbage. I didn't understand that. Like, I really just didn't understand it. Like, where did that come from, That's your child. Like, my mindset would be, wouldn't you want to help her? But I guess she felt like she did all she could for her, and, she had to let her find a way. I left my grandmother's house looking for peace, because by that time, my grandmother was no longer living there, so I left to try to seek solace. And that person was supposed to be a friend giving me that solace. No means no, and he didn't understand no, and he violated me, and that's how my son came about. So the correlation to my grandmother and my mother not being there, it would be because if I was with my mother, had my mother been there, I wouldn't have been violated, because I wouldn't have even had to go to the young man's house to try to seek peace, trying to get away from my own house. So yeah, definitely, that's something that I correlate to being raised in my grandmother's house, allowing not being there and her sons being there and life just happening. But here it is, I'm this young girl, unprotected, and I'm thinking that I'm going to be violated at the house with all the shenanigans that they had going on. So I left to be violated anyway by somebody I knew. It was just like, wow, it was really unnerving, to say the least. And then to have to keep this dirty little secret and walk around with this shame of being violated. And Lord God, when I got pregnant, it was like, what? Now what do I do? So I was against abortion. I did not want abortion. I was going to actually have the child and put the child up for adoption, but I had a great team. And they stuck by me and held me down and made sure that, I knew that they were there, and they've been there ever since. So I came to Fredericksburg because 9/11 happened, and I lost my job, and my ex-husband lost his job, and then they wound up calling me back actually when I was packing to come down to Fredericksburg. But I had already had the apartment and everything and just made the move, because it was like no looking back. Because if I would have stayed, then the kids and everybody was already down in school and already situated. So yeah, that wouldn't have worked. So it was family members that's already here. And that's not real family. That's the people that I call family growing up. So that's my best friend, who we called each other sisters. And she was down here already, I want to say like a year. And I came to visit, and I knew that I wanted to get out of New York, because New York was getting more expensive, and as far as the job, having lost the job, it was like, okay, well, let me try to find a different venue, and came to Fredericksburg, and I can't stand it, but I made it home. I never misinterpreted. I knew it was love, but what I did know is he loved me more than I loved him. I didn't even know how to love myself. So I knew that he loved me more than I loved him. So it was more so when I was in New York, I was in the choir, I was in the church, and I had to be married because, it didn't look right to, the church folks that, this young lady is in the choir as a leader and she's not married. So that's why I was pushing for it, never understanding it because it wasn't around me, knowing that this man was younger than me, 2 years younger than me, and sacrificed his life to be there to help me raise this kid at 5 months. Oh, it was a no-brainer, and it was either a big wedding or a house. I wanted the big wedding, but this man made me understand that the wedding is going to be for one day, this house is longevity. So he was definitely younger than me, but he was a teacher. He's a good man. He was definitely a good man, but I don't think I was ready, so I didn't understand a lot of stuff that he was doing, and not having a father, I felt like he was trying to be my father, and I rebelled in that way. But as I got older, in the relationship, in the marriage, I realized this man is doing nothing but love you, even through all the shenanigans that I put this man through. He loved me unconditionally. If you look up the word love, you'll see that man's face right there, because he loved me. To this day, that man loves me, wants the best for me, my best interest. I mean, it's amazing, because me, I'd have been like, I would have been, whoo! There's no way I could have put what I put him through. There's no way that I could have dealt with that and kept up. No way. That man is like, wow. Good man. Never, ever, ever have anything bad to say about that man, because that man was good to me. He was good to me. And all the love that I didn't get when I was growing up, all the love that I thought the guys were giving me, as I was dating and things like that. In one shell, this man gave me the world, gave me the world. Listen, is the camera on?
Yeah.
Turn it off.
Okay.
So my husband and I are no longer together because I thought the grass was greener on the other side. And, it was somebody that I knew before my husband. He was Muslim, I was Christian. I mean, to the point where he was going to convert from Muslim to be a Christian to be with me. It was all games. I never knew, even going to school doing psychology, I never understood gaslighting. I never understood that term. I never understood a narcissistic person. So when I was approached with this, who knows everything, it was like, oh, this man really loves me. I mean, it was, this man would get me out the shower and lotion me down. My husband ain't never do that. So I'm thinking like, yeah, this is great. This is good. I mean, everything was on point. And I had to realize, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you are dancing with the devil, because all that glitters is not gold. And that's one thing. If I never take anything else from my grandmother, that's one thing she used to always tell me. Lena, everything that glitters ain't gold. Well, she never lied, because all of that getting out the shower and being lotioned down and fed strawberries and all that craziness, that meant nothing when that guy really showed who he really was, which was a narcissistic, lying, cheat, and son of a gun. Abusive, but again, hurt people. So he was a little boy that was hurt. So all he knew was hurt. So he manipulated women. And it's even a point where you can see the women that are weak and see the women that are naive and gullible. And I was that woman. And I didn't even know it. I thought I was bad. I thought I was all that. I thought I had it together, And this man, he really showed me who I was. At that time, I was weak, I was naive, I was gullible. I would say that was the transition in life that they call midlife crisis. I was going through a midlife crisis. I didn't feel needed anymore. My kids were grown. They were driving on their own. There were no more activities to go through with the kids. The husband and I, we didn't have a relationship because everything was into the kids. So now I'm by myself. The husband's working, I'm working, we both doing our own life, but here's this man that's saying all these beautiful things. Every morning greeting me, good morning, beautiful, how are you, beautiful, all this. You know you're beautiful. You don't need somebody else to tell you that. But when you're going through this, I didn't even know it was dysfunction. I didn't even know it was depression. All of those things just crept back up in me that I didn't even know was going on, that came from my childhood. I didn't know it. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't until I sought counsel that I realized that that's how that man was even able to come in my life, because now I'm like that little 10-year-old girl looking for love. And here's this man showing me all the love and all the appreciation, all the attention that I thought I needed, that my husband was giving me all along. He just put it in a better, prettier package. But my husband was doing it all along. So, it's stuff like that that's like, wow, you know. before I even knew that there was a curse, I was able to break the curse by just being there for them, showing up, going above and beyond. Like, growing up, I was so angry. I couldn't have company. I couldn't go to anybody's house. I understand that once I became a parent, but you don't understand that when you're 14 and want to go to the slumber party. Like, you don't understand that. You are the worst parent in the world to those kids when you tell them no. You know, but I remember a time when they had this skating event for my daughter, and I told my daughter, no, absolutely not. But then she heard stories later on, and she was like, I'm so glad I didn't go to that such and such and such, you know. So growing up for me, it was a lot of no's. My grandmother, being raised by my grandmother, it was a lot of no's and a lot of you can't do this, you can't do that. I remember times even looking out the window at my uncles play with my friends. Oh man, I define motherhood as showing up for your kids no matter what. I mean, your kid could be right, wrong, or indifferent. That's your kid. You stand up for your kid. You check them later. Don't ever check them in public, because that's belittling them and you can actually cause harm. So I found myself just loving my kids above and beyond and making sure that I'm there for them and they know that I'm there for them. Loving on them, letting them know how much I love them by telling them every day, all day, kissing and hugging them, just giving them everything that I didn't have. So that is the main way that I definitely, you know, showed up for my kids. I'm here because I forgot to tell part of my story that's really important to my life and how it altered my life. I was at work one day and I got a call from my daughter saying that the cops came by the house. I'm like, the cops? For what? They came to see if we were okay. Okay? They gave me a business card and said to call this detective down in Miami involving Avery. I'm like, what? Wow. Okay, so I take the number and I call and I ask, okay, this is Robert Coltrain's mom, what's going on? And he tells me, I have your son here. And I'm like, okay, why? You know, like, I'm just ready to get to the point. So he explains to me that he had my son because my son was involved in a car accident and they found a body in the trunk. What?
Miami-Dade police making an arrest after a disturbing discovery after a crash.
Cops finding a decaying body in the trunk of that wrecked car. Local 10's Leanne Monehong is live with more on this. Leanne.
This is just such a horrible story, especially for family members back in Virginia who were hoping for the best after their loved one went missing. Now we know that that person was found here in South Florida, and the person police say is responsible is behind bars. A sad end to a missing persons case out of Virginia. The body of 25-year-old Brian Trotter discovered Sunday in the trunk of a car police say was driven by this man, 25-year-old Robert Avery Coltrain. The Florida Highway Patrol making the gruesome discovery while responding to a car crash on the Palmetto Expressway south of Northwest 154th Street. You can hear the call as it went out on dispatch recordings.
Single vehicle accident southbound State Road 826, advising the express lanes. Miami Lakes Drive, Silver, Acura involved.
Troopers say they smelled a foul odor coming from the car right away. They say because of the smell and the heavy rain, they had the car towed to the parking lot of Westland Mall. It's there, FHP says, they popped the trunk and discovered Trotter's body inside and observed he sustained multiple gunshot wounds. Trotter had not been seen since October 17th when Coltrain allegedly picked up Trotter from his home. Trotter's family reported him missing the next day after they were unable to reach him. Coltrain now faces charges of second-degree murder and transporting human remains and is locked up tonight. So Coltrain should have his first appearance before a judge tomorrow. However, because of the nature of the charges, you can expect the judge order him held without bond. Reporting live in West Miami-Dade, Leanne Monehong, Local 10 News.
My son? Robert Coltrain is your son? Yes. And I'm like, can I talk to him? And he's like, yes. So I asked him, I said, did you ask for a lawyer? He said, yes, ma'am. I said, say nothing. Say nothing. To know my son is to know that Robert was a guy that would do anything for anybody. He was an up-and-coming artist. He had a wine selection. He had a clothing line. He had a whole lot of things that, was surprising to me because he wanted to surprise me, to let me know that, he was really out there doing what he needed to do to make a mark in life. Because I worked so hard. I worked 2 and 3 jobs and he didn't want me doing that. So he always told me that he was going to make it easier for me. So to get that type of news, it was like, what? Unreal, and as I read the story and I go back and I look at what the news is saying, the person that he was accused of killing is Brian Trotter, his friend. What?
On October 17th, 2020, a Virginia rapper, Brian Trotter, was reported missing by his family members, and he was finally found on the 25th of the same month. Except, he was already dead. His body was found inside the trunk of a car in Miami, but how did it get there? There are still some missing pieces in between. The story starts off in Washington, D.C., where Brian left his longtime friend, Robert Coltrain, to take some photographs. Of course, he left with his cell phone like most people in the 21st century. But not too long after, he stopped communicating with family and friends. Brian, who was also a hip-hop artist and former Virginia high school athlete, had the rap name Kent Don't Stop and was hoping to make it big in the entertainment scene. Brian and Robert had been close friends for more than a decade, so it wasn't weird to family members that both rappers were driving out together. Robert came from a town about 30 miles from DC to pick up Brian from his house in Virginia. Brian's father noticed something was off but paid no attention to it. He saw that Robert was acting really strange, refusing to come into the house when he wouldn't need an invitation on a normal day, acting really distant and nervous. Brian's father thought he was just having a bad day. When the two men said they were off to DC, he assumed they were going to take promotional pictures for their music since they were both struggling to make a career in music, and that would be the last time he would see his son alive.
These boys were like brothers from middle school. They did everything together. They took turns to drive to work together, so they both won't be using up their gas. If he had a job and his job was making more money, he'll bring them over there. Like, the families were close, so I didn't understand how could he be accused of that. There gotta be more to the story. So I don't know what's going on. I don't have a clue, but what I do know is my son is not a murderer. My son is not a killer. And to be accused of killing his best friend, that's unreal. Like, I can't even fathom it. Like, I have no emotion because I'm all cried out. I'm all cried out because it gotta be some more going on.
When Brian didn't come home as expected, his family immediately filed a missing persons report. They first tried calling his friend, who gave different stories and confirmed that something was fishy. First, he said he had dropped Brian off, and then he said a friend had picked him up. Upset and afraid, the family turned to social media for help, creating a Facebook page for the search. And finally, he was found, but under bizarre circumstances, on the afternoon of October 25th. There was a crash on the Palmetto Expressway close to Miami Lakes, and the Florida Highway Patrol was dispatched to handle it. The car involved in the crash was a silver Acura and was on its way north. When the Highway Patrol team got to the scene of the crash, they towed the car to the parking lot of a mall for investigations. All these happened during a heavy downpour. They became suspicious when Robert went to get his belongings from the car. It wasn't just the fact that he had removed a Glock gun case, but there was an overwhelming stench reaching them from the trunk. It smelled rotten and downright terrible. As soon as they opened the trunk, they found a body wrapped in a piece of fabric. It was already in an advanced stage of decomposition, and Robert had to be brought in for questioning. The investigators found a .45 caliber Glock pistol in the car. This is the weapon that killed Brian because the autopsy revealed multiple gunshots to his torso. To make matters worse, Robert had driven 14 hours with the body of his friend of 10 years, decomposing in his trunk. Nobody knows the motive behind this.
So what the news is saying has happened is my son went to his house to get Mr. Trotter for they were going to a photo shoot. When the dad saw my son, he said, usually my son is like uppity and like, hey, the dad's name is also Brian Trotter. So Avery's friend, Robert's friend Brian was junior. So when he saw Robert, usually he greets him and gives him big hugs and everything. He said Robert was real standoffish. Okay, that would be suspicious to me too. But me, I wouldn't let my kid go with him because something strange is going on. So then they left, they go, and they don't hear back from Brian. So they asked my son, they asked Robert, have he heard from him? He said, no, he hasn't heard from him. So then my son, I'm speaking to him on a regular, and everything is normal to my knowledge. And the next thing I know, 10 days later, my son has, or allegedly is accused of having this boy in his trunk of his car. The boy died from a gunshot. They said my son went to get his belongings out the car and went to retrieve a weapon. The accident happened in Miami, Florida, and the police came to the scene to assist my son. When they came to assist him, they stated that they smelled a foul odor. Upon smelling that foul odor, they went to the car, to the trunk of the car, and they said that when my son went to get his belongings out, that's when they smelled it even more. Being police officers, they know the smell of death, so they knew exactly what they were smelling. But when they went to ask my son, he didn't say anything. They asked him who was in the trunk, and he just looked at them like blank. He didn't know what they were speaking of. So then they said, is it a girl or a guy? And he said he was just blank. So how it came up to how they found out, like, I don't know. All I know is what I'm reading in the newspaper. And, once they got him, once he asked to get his stuff out the trunk, they were taking his car to, I think they said they were taking it to like a junkyard or something, like, wherever they take cars that was damaged, because the car was really damaged. I don't know what he crashed into, but like when I looked at the news, the whole front of the car was smashed up. So they were taking the car somewhere else, but they were allowing him to get his belongings out the car. Upon them allowing him to get his belongings out the car is when they smelled the foul odor of the body, and they asked him what was it, and that's how that went. So when they arrested him, that's when they obviously contacted somebody in Virginia, and that's when the police came to my house in Virginia, but I had already left to go to work. So that's when my daughter contacted me when I was at work, so when I got the call and I called them and he told me what he told me, of course, I after I hung up the phone, I freaked out. Like I went bananas. Like, that's nothing that a mother wants to hear about their child. My son is only 25 years old at this time. Never had a crime, never had anything. So to go from zero to that, it's unreal. It's unreal. It's still like a nightmare that I'm trying to wake up from. I'm still stuck in this nightmare. Like I said, I don't even have any more tears. because I'm just so focused on getting to the bottom of it, because this is not it. This is just, right now his court date is just keep being delayed, and that's it. It's no new evidence or no new information. He was extradited he was in Miami for 8 months, and they extradited him to Virginia. Miami dropped all charges, and Virginia picked up the charges. So right now he's in Prince William County jail. And that was beyond hard, because I went to see him for the first time, and I didn't physically see him. I'm seeing my son behind a glass, behind a computer, behind another glass. So I'm not physically seeing him face to face. He's in a whole nother part of the jail, behind a computer, behind a glass is how I'm doing this. And I only have 20 minutes. So I have to drive an hour and a half to have 20 minutes for whatever it is, because I know that that's not my son. That's not my son. That's not my son. And I got to be there for him. I got to let him know that, I love him, and I'm sorry for the loss of Brian, because that was like a son to me as well. Absolutely, my heart goes out to the family. I wanted to reach out to the family, but there's no way that I could. So I had to leave well enough alone and just deal with, if they come to me, if they reach out to me, be open arm and willing, but I get it. If the shoe was on the other foot, how would I feel? How would I react? So I just sit and I wait, and I ask God to get me through it every day. The holidays coming up, I don't have my son. It's really, really, really hard. It's really hard to tell somebody to just day by day, knowing that you lived a certain way, and then for it to be altered in such a way. It really went from 0 to 1,000 with this. It really went from 0 to 1,000, and I don't have any answers. That's the worst part. I don't have any answers, because that's not my son. That's not my son. My son would never do that. So, yeah, that's part of my story that I left out, that has truly altered my life for the rest of my life, because I don't know what my son is facing. I don't know if my son is going to have life. I don't know if my son is going to have months. Excuse me, Lord, I know it's not months, years, whatever the time frame is. It's just too long for me to be away from my son, but I understand something happened. I'm lost for words. Having made the sacrifice for my kids that my parents didn't make for me lets me know that the cycle has been broken. That's what it does. It lets me know that the cycle has been broken, because, again, I am not from Fredericksburg. I do not like Fredericksburg. I love New York. I love Harlem World all day. So the fact that I stayed here for 18 years lets me know that I adore my kids. I love my kids. And, many times I was going to go back. Many times I was going to go back to New York and, do it all over again. But New York got rough. It definitely got rough. When I hear people say she did the best that she know how, it's a catch-22. Because doing the best you know how and doing better, it correlates with one another. So if you know that this happened when you were growing up, you should try to make it different when you bring life. So that was one of the reasons that I was so angry at my mom, because I did it. I chose to do it. I was a parent to my kids because they didn't ask to be here. I brought them in this world, and I chose to raise them the way I did because I didn't have that care and love and everything. So you know better, you do better, and the scapegoat again, it's a catch-22 because you know better, you do better. What if you know better, you do better, then why didn't you do better? You know, so it's, to me, it's like, you know, okay. If that's your story and you sticking to it, okay, because it doesn't fly with me because you did the best you know how. That's the best you know how when you didn't have the best. So that's the best you know how. Nah, I think I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Love yourself, forgive yourself, and do your best from there. You can't change what happened. You can't change what your parents did to you or lack thereof. You are the best that you thought that you could be, even though I may think you could have done better. What you knew is what you knew at that time. And what you know now is you're there for me, you love me, you're there for my sisters, and you're the best mom that you could possibly be. And you're an excellent grandmother. I mean, never miss a birthday, never miss a Mother's Day. I mean, you're the best mom, and I would trade you for the world. I love you, Mommy. What I would give advice to a young lady that's growing up that doesn't have anybody, go to a teacher, go to a counselor, but speak to somebody. Please don't hold it inside because it's going to wind up resonating into pain after pain after pain, and you're going to wind up acting it out. You're going to wind up drinking and drugging, seeking the boys, being promiscuous. Let it out. Don't harbor that negative energy inside. Speak to somebody. Even if you write it out, get it out your system, ball it up, burn it up, whatever, but get it out. Don't hold it inside, please. Speak to somebody. There's always a teacher. There's always a friend. Call me. You know, I'm available. There's always somebody because it's going to continue to be a pain that you don't have an answer for. And you can't do it by yourself. You can't. I couldn't. I had to seek help because there's no way that I thought that what I was doing was okay, you know? The younger me, I would say, you are strong, you are brave, you are loved, you are phenomenal, and you will make it. And she did. She did. My mom and I are like best friends now. My mother is long time recovered. She loves the Lord. She's given her life to Christ. She's living in Detroit, living her best life. She's not worried about a man. She's able to take care of herself. You know, she too is getting ready to write a book. So my mom is amazing. And it hurts me because that's all those years that I miss from my mom. Because I know my mom was always that person. And all she wanted was love. So she sought love in the drugs, in the men, in the different things. But that woman is amazing, amazing. Her spirit is not broken throughout the abuse, throughout the drugs, throughout all that she went through. That lady, I know that's where I get it from. My mom is like amazing. She is definitely, I'm glad God chose her to be my mom, despite not being there for me. I forgive her for all of that. It wasn't her fault. Hurt people. So my grandmother being hurt and not raised by her mom and family, having to raise these kids now, she just didn't have it in her. Because I sought God at the age of 18 going on 19, I gave my life to Christ, and God is love, God is forgiveness. So who am I to want to give my love for everybody else, but I can't love my own mom? That doesn't work that way. I could forgive my best friend for, whatever it is, but I can't forgive my mom, the woman who gave birth to me. When people ask me, how could you forgive her? How could you? She didn't even apologize. I feel like whatever my mom went through was traumatic enough. So for me not to forgive her is making it more traumatic for her. And the fact that I see change in her, I had no choice but to forgive her. So whatever people think about me is none of my business. And it's none of their business what my choice is to whether I forgive my mom or not. My mom didn't ask to be here. You know, she was born, and she was born in a situation where she was going through her own trauma and didn't know how to put it together. Then she had these kids thinking she's tried to love something or want something to love her back because she wasn't getting it from her parents. So it's a cycle that just had to be broken. I didn't see myself falling for that tough love and you know I love you type of thing. Nah. My mother knows I love her. She knows that I got her back, her fronts, and her sides. What makes me happy now is the fact that I'm able to be free. You know, all my little dirty secrets are out, and I'm no longer bound by what people think or the fact that somebody may say something that I didn't get to say myself. So I'm free, and that's what makes me happy, being free. No longer living on the edge of what ifs, and you know, I'm free. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Be colorblind, don't be so shallow. Yes, free your mind. I'm free.